Hello and welcome back to You Can Play Europa Universalis IV, the short tutorial that covers one issue with each episode and tries to do it within just no less than 5, but no more than 10 minutes. This is episode 4. In this episode, we're going to talk about provinces. First, a quick note. I saw some folks were having some trouble as far as the audio balance. I apologize for that. Hopefully this is a little better. I've tried to turn down the background audio and crank up my microphone a bit if it still needs a little bit of tuning. Let me know. Anyway, provinces. Worth noting, I do have all the DLC enabled for this particular episode, just because there's a lot of things that you get added into the province menu screen as you add in the DLC. This is your province menu screen. So there's a lot of things going on here, and I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but I do want to cover the main things that you're going to see here. First, terrain, which is really relevant and definitely something you want to pay attention to, because it's going to tell you about what the number of buildings, how, what kind of development costs are going to be there, how it's going to impact your production, and also, really importantly, how it's going to impact conflict. So if you look at somewhere like Tyrol here, Tyrol is a mountainous terrain. Importantly, if you're a defender in this terrain and somebody attacks you, you're in great situation. You can see here, dice roll for attackers is -2. That's a huge penalty. Attacking into the mountains is really, really difficult. So as opposed to something like where we were looking at London, farmland, that doesn't have any impact. Something like terrain woods, that can have a much smaller impact. You can get a full look of all the different terrain types here, right? This will give you kind of a quick glimpse at this. The browns are obviously mountains. The greens tend to be the simpler, like the forest plain type. So you have this is a very heavily forested area. You can also scroll out and start to see other terrain types. You have marsh up here. Obviously, you get down here, you're going to get into desert regions. So yeah, terrain is important. It's something to think about. But most important is, to me, development. Now, if you don't have, I want to say, common sense, you won't have these little buttons here. You'll just have a flat number. Each of these things is really important in understanding the value of your province. In the shortest terms possible, the higher this number is, probably the stronger that province is. And then you have the total development. 7 + 7 + 6 = 20. This is the total development of the province. If you hover over these numbers, it will tell you important things about it. But it's ultimately all a sort of a function of what's going on over here. So in the base tax is really important for just your tax amount. Don't worry about all the numbers. Just know that the higher this number goes, the higher this number goes. And this number directly adds into your overall treasury. If you look here, you can see there's a total amount of taxation you get, and you can see in there, it says London is 0.72. So let's look at somewhere else, somewhere where we can actually, well, we can't increase any because I just started a game. But if you increase this, if you press this button, if you have the common sense expansion, this number would go up to 8. It would cost a certain amount. Here it costs 49 to increase any of these numbers, and we will be able to do it over here, and by extension that would increase your overall tax. Base tax leads to dollars. Production's next. Production is based on what the province produces, in this case cloth, and then it goes right into here. So it is another sort of money-making factor. You can increase you spending your diplomatic power. This is increased by spending admin power. And of course, we'll get to manpower in a second, but that's increased spending military power. You can watch here. Again, this goes, these two numbers, that's the total amount of ducats that that London is feeding to your treasury. And it's going to be different, obviously, from place to place. Now, for somewhere that has a less valuable production item, and maybe it's just livestock, you can see that production number goes a lot lower. This is a smaller province, as well as only has 8 development. So there's a big difference between 7 development and a very rich production modifier here, production item. Another good one is obviously silver, right? You're getting a good amount of money even at 3 production. So you can see that what you produce in the province, along with the development you put into your production, ultimately feeds another number that goes to your total treasury. As we said, you can watch right here. We're making 0.43. If I click this, now it goes up to 0.49. These 2 buttons are a good way to increase the base development for your provinces and by extension increase your income. This one increases your manpower. So you'll see here that every province has a base manpower, 500 here, 500 here. 500 is pretty common, but 250. And then it's modified by how much your manpower is upgraded by. So again, here in London, we have a high base of 1,500. We have 6 manpower development modifying that, so we go up to 1,650. So these are the most important things. That's why I spent the most time on it, and understanding here how that sort of translates into reading the province in terms of how much money it's giving you, how much manpower it's giving you, also trade power. Trade power I'm not going to dive into because trade is really its own discussion. Know that it's related to the development here because it's a function of many things. Trade power comes from a variety of different issues. So yeah, you can kind of get a look at military power in relation to this, tax power in relation to this, and trade power we'll get into that more with greater complexity soon. You can see over here the number of buildings, right? These are the buildings that you can build. This is very early in the game, so there's not a lot that we can build. As you increase your development, you'll get access to be able to build more buildings in a province. And those buildings, at their heart, essentially relate to different items. So churches and workshops will work in collaboration with your development in base tax. So think about it this way. If you build a church, the idea of building a church is to gain money from that particular province. In tithing and taxes, workshops, something similar. So that will act just like essentially just like manpower does. So if you have that building, it's giving you a certain amount of money. And the more developed your province is, the more money it's kicking out. So if you have a temple or a church or whatever in a province with only 1 admin development, it's not going to make much money. If you have one in a province with 15 admin, it's going to make a ton of money. It's not so important which ones do what. Right now, as far as buildings go, you can kind of learn that over time by just hovering over things. But to know that the obvious relationships, like a barracks is going to be more effective in a high military developed province. A church is going to be more effective in the high administrative developed province. And the marketplace, right, trade, is going to go to the Diplo. So the buildings you put into any particular province are going to work with the modifiers here and then increase these numbers here, right? A barracks is going to add manpower, so you'll get an additional modifier along with manpower development and your base manpower, and then any buildings you build. You can build units in provinces. We'll get back into that a little bit more when we actually talk about production of units and creating an army. You can get some data down here just about how an individual province is, what bonuses it has, how it's contributing to your force limit modifiers. It's good stuff to know, but I kind of want to stop here because I think the most important things to think about are really these right here. Right? It's what is the relationship between the development of your province to the income and the manpower it's making for you, and how do buildings help support that? You can obviously see that it's English and culture. It has Catholic religion. There's more up here. This button is specific to England. Specific to countries with parliament. And you can make some changes as far as choosing where your capital is going to be and choosing where your primary trade city is going to be. I play mini games where I'll never even click one of these. It's just one of those things that's available. Last thing to note, along with if it's assigned to any estate. So estates can also add modifiers. Where are my estates? Clergy, right. So this belongs to the clergy, and that gives some additional modifiers. last thing to note is you can kind of keep track of your institutions here. We'll get into institutions a little more when we talk about technology. Think of them as terms of milestones for the 400, just short of 400 years you play, and they will be relevant to the technology discussion. And also, I forget which expansion added this, but states are their own thing, and we will have a separate conversation about states. So this is about province, but understand that each province is a part of a state, and each state is then part of the nations overall, though there can be situations where there's an overlap, right? This state is actually in some degree of conflict because England owns two of them and Scotland owns the other. But we'll get into states more as we think about that. So development, relationship to tax, relationship to production, relationship to manpower, and then how buildings modify those are the important things that you want to take away from this discussion. This one's a little bit more complicated because there's a lot of moving pieces. But no, higher development tends to just mean higher numbers in terms of what that development is. More admin, more money. More production, well, more money and probably more trade as well. And then military, more military, more manpower. Anyway, that's provinces at a super quick glance. You could spend a while looking at these things, but we're trying to keep it short. I don't know how long that was. I think I went a little over, but hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more about how provinces work and how those relationships are set up. Until next time, my name is Sean Sands, and you can play EU4. Just go start a game. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. You'll do it. You know a lot more than you did before. So we'll see you next time. Bye.